Doing a special early edition of Office Hours. My watch says it is 12:30, and we're broadcasting early today because I could not wait. I could not wait to talk to my old friend, uh, Ben Jundanian, the artist. He's coming at us live from North Carolina. That's where you are right now. Is that right, Ben?
Yeah, we're out in Asheville, North Carolina.
Us live from the mountains of Asheville, North Carolina, because he's going to talk to us about art. He's going to talk about inspiration. Viewers of Office Hours, you have turned in your questions. Ben is going to answer your questions about where he gets his inspiration. I mean, Ben, let's start from the beginning. First of all, how do you and I know each other? Teacher, we used to work together,
Yes, we
uh,
did.
but when we worked together, I we didn't work together. We didn't work together making art. Do you remember what we were doing way back when?
Yeah, yeah, Colin. When I first met you, you were a bike messenger, and I was a bike messenger. We were both working in downtown Boston, delivering other people's mail uh, for very little money. So, but that for me as an artist was a way to put myself through art school and pay my bills, while also just being able to get outside and have as much free time as I could, And so that's how we met in a back alley. I think I remember right. We met in an alleyway.
That's absolutely correct. It was an alley, Utica Street in Boston, Massachusetts. So tell me, Ben, though, working downtown, riding your bike through the streets, through the summer, the winter, the snow and the rain, the sun, did that inspire your art at all? Your art making process, or the way you think about making art?
Absolutely, Colin. Absolutely. Um, my art is just it's mostly all based around like just this spreading sort of cityscapes that I draw that just like fill the whole page or a whole wall, or I've painted 40, 50-foot wide murals that are just all these tight, crazy packed cityscapes, and being able to ride around the cityscapes all day and just see the little things that I put into my drawings all the time, like little dumpsters here and air conditioners here. Being able to just sort of be inside like a big version of one of my drawings, riding around like, all day long, was awesome, and kind of made my drawings into what they're like right now.
And so now in North Carolina, what inspires you to make your art?
Well, mostly out here in Western North Carolina, a lot of my inspiration is drawn from the sort of like urban decay of, of Asheville, North Carolina's more like industrial heyday. So this area was big with freight trains and industry, and so along the river there's tons and tons of train tracks and old abandoned factory buildings and rusted out cars, and just completely ivy growing over like old structures. And most of those places you can just sort of poke around and take photos and do drawings, and or just spend time in. So sometimes we'll pack a lunch and just go hang out, out among like the big old freight trains. So that's where I draw my inspiration now, is my work kind of like less clean like Boston was, and starting to become like more like showcasing like more of the interesting decay and the way things change as like humans sort of ignore them for a while.
And so, would you say that wherever you are, inspiration can be? Is that a fair thing to say? You can find inspiration anywhere, or are there certain kinds of places that are more inspiring than others?
That's an interesting one, because I've found so much inspiration in so many different places. For a year, my wife and I lived in the back of a truck and drove around the country, and I was away from cities for almost an entire year, where I wasn't surrounded by the buildings. I was still drawing. I was still drawing buildings. I was still drawing like this sort of like urban decay. But when I went to bed at night, I was surrounded by like 50 miles of trees and mountains. So I think I can still draw inspiration from like the complexity of things around you, and like a city and a forest are kind of the same thing in terms of complexity and decay and the sort of way that they sort of like change over time. You can look at like an old dead standing dead tree, and like that's a lot like an old factory that's been run down. So I think that inspiration can kind of be found everywhere.
Excellent. Hey, while we're thinking about inspiration that's everywhere, now you went to school to learn about art, right? You went to the Massachusetts College of Art.
Yeah, I
And
went to the master and studied printmaking. So screen print, etching, so really, really fine detail line work stuff. And that was mostly what I did, block printing. But yeah, mostly went to school as a screen printer and of course came out as an illustrator.
when did you be an artist? Like, how did you know that you wanted to go to art school?
Well, let's see. Probably the first time was like my parents signed me up for like the city league soccer thing, you know, and I remember like sitting on the sidelines of city league soccer just drawing and having no interest to play. And back then you didn't have to play, so I would just sit on the sidelines. They'd take me to soccer practice. I'd pull out a notebook and I'd sit there with my little shin guards on and draw. And so I think my parents were like, "All right, this one's going to be a nerd," and just sort of started handing me pieces of paper and pens. And my dad would give me fine tip pens because that's what he used for work. He was an engineer, so he had these really fine tip pens and these really fine tip sort of like, let's see, like these like sort of crazy mechanical pencils. So my dad used to give me these because these are what he used to have lying around. So I learned to draw with like these really, really tiny fine tip tools, and that sort of informed like what became like this sort of like fine point like line work style that is what I've based my career off of. So I think it all got started like when I was probably like 6 or 7. There's pictures where I would draw like technical illustrations of like airplanes or ships, as like a 5 or a 6 year old trying to like get it all right.
So it's almost been nearly 30 years of art making in your case. Is that right? Without giving away too many personal details.
No, that yeah, really, it's I would say I'm 34, so I'll give away those details. But no, it's been almost 30 years. Yeah, of constant art making. It's been the one thing in my life that's never really changed. I've always been making art, and I'm more comfortable drawing than I probably am doing anything else.
And how did you get good at drawing? Like how that a lot of students had. How did you improve your skills beyond just like doing it all the time with those fine tip tools you said that you had as a youth?
Three things. One is the old adage like how do you get to Carnegie Hall? Practice. So you have to spend time doing something to be good at anything, and that goes the same for skateboarding, for video games. Like it goes the same for anything you want to touch in life. Is that the more you do it, the better and more fluid you're going to be at it.
Including, would you say, including speaking? Not to cut you off, but would you say
No,
that that includes English, practicing
anything.
every day? Yeah.
Speaking of that, skateboarding, playing video games, like woodworking, any of the things you put your mind to, like the the more you do any one thing, the better or more like comfortable you're going to be doing it, the more natural it's going to become. So drawing is just like that. Like so, if I didn't draw a lot, holding a pen and making it move around, like manipulating it in the way I want, tiny little lines, it would be really difficult. And then probably the second thing is just like being willing to take risks and make mistakes and experiment and draw, like not just always draw like still lifes from like your kitchen table, but sort of draw still lifes from your head, and sort of bring your imagination into it, because that's like where like the real artist kind of lives, inside your head. And then I kind of forget the third thing I was going to say, but we can stick with two things.
Two things. Two. That's all you need, really. Two things. Getting better. Hey, Ben. Let me ask some other questions people had. This is we're gonna move away from art and inspiration for a second. You have some dogs, right?
Yes, that's one right there.
There's one right there. Okay.
Burns.
Burns. And I think some people were wondering, because you often appear with Burns. There are pictures of you and Burns on your website, benjundanian.com. I know
Right.
some students were wondering, how old is Burns?
Burns is 6.5 years old. Right, buddy. And right now he's barking at somebody in the driveway. But no, he's 6.5 years old. I got him when I was a courier in Boston, and he used to ride along with me, like next to my bike on a little short leash, and make my deliveries the last couple of years I was working. And then we have another dog too that we just got. And my wife's going to get her. This is the newest addition to our
Oh,
family.
hello.
And this is Mochi, and she is a little 7-month-old Boston Terrier, and she is the cutest in the world.
So bringing a little bit of Massachusetts back down to North
Yeah,
Carolina.
we had to get a Boston Terrier. We found her off of Craigslist, which is the craziest thing. But yeah, we never thought we'd have a Boston Terrier, but she's the best. Look at her little belly.
Hello, Moshi.
And Burns loves her too, so they're good friends.
Well, that's excellent that they all get along together and they are working together. How do you collaborate with other artists, or do you feel as an artist you often work by yourself, or do you work more with others, or how does that process work?
I would say career, I work primarily alone. For what I'm getting, like the jobs I get paid for are almost 100% my work alone, and that's about it. For my personal life, I collaborate as often as possible. Um, I collaborate. I still paint outdoor murals, so I collaborate with other mural artists. Like we just did an old Street Fighter 2 themed garage. We painted the whole garage with all the whole backgrounds and the characters and stuff for a business around here. And so that was a collaborative effort between like three or four artists. I'm collaborating with an artist from San Francisco now, where we're just both of us are kind of having not a lot of work. So we're drawing like half sheets of paper and mailing them off to each other. And I've collaborated with other artists on, just mostly little side projects. And, I'll do the font and they'll do the characters. And, it's in my personal life and like the art I do for me, I collaborate as much as possible. But the art I do for money, I collaborate as little as possible because I just want to have control and make sure that it gets done on time and to the client specifications. Whereas collaborating can sometimes be a little bit of a juggling act and up in the air.
And I imagine as you're making money too, the advantage of working alone for the money is that you keep more of the money for yourself. That brings us to
Yeah.
another question students had: is how, as an artist, how do you make so much money so quickly?
Well, I think that's pretty relative. I wish I was making so much money, but I mean, I feel like for the amount of time I put in to professional art, I make a pretty good living for the amount of actual time that I have to put in. So the answer to that is twofold. I'm not the best artist that graduated from my class in mass art. I'm maybe not even in the top 50%, but I was the best salesman to graduate from my class at mass art. And I think that is one of the things that they don't really teach you at art school and nobody really talks about when you're talking about like trying to market yourself as a product. And I've created something that's me and it's a product, and it's more important that I'm able to sell it and convince people that this is what they want and why they want it than it is to be able to actually create the art. So I think being a salesman first and an artist second is where that where the money starts coming in.
I see. And as a salesman, you're using language a lot, right? That's almost as much about how you talk and write about your work as it is producing the work
100%.
itself.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
100%. It's about, and I mean, I sat down and read books on how to like do business negotiations and stuff because it is about your language. It's about how you approach like every client interaction and what you say and what you don't say, or even just the order of what you say, or the things you choose to disclose and when. Because as an artist, I want to find out how much money my client has, so that I can find out how much money they're willing to spend.
mhm.
And so getting that sort of information it's key to being able to because art's so subjective that like a piece of paper with a drawing on it could be $5 or $5,000 depending on who drew it and the sort of significance they've attached to their own work.
Mhm.
Like Picasso used to draw on a napkin, and those napkin drawings are worth tons of money now. So he was
So
just a good marketer.
he was a good marketer. Do you have any? What do you think is the most important thing in being a good marketer? Like, what's the key thing that you really focus on aside from knowing how much your client is willing to spend?
Confidence. I think you have to like what you do, and you have to like truly be in love with the work that you make, because people can see right through that. And I think that's like, if you are genuine and you love the work you do and you're passionate about making sure that it's installed correctly, and that like I'm trying to make money, but I also love the work I do, and I want the clients to get that work, and I want them to love it as much as I love it. And so I think that sort of love of your own artwork is infectious, and it can carry over to the client. And that's really, to boil it down, that's just honesty. Like if you love the work you do, it just shows through you.
So I'm hearing honesty, confidence, inspiration. Those are all three important. Practice is a fourth thing that's
Yeah,
important for anybody who
they're all
wants to be an
simple,
artist.
simple stuff. Yeah, they're all simple. Like they seem pretty basic, but like it's that those are like the building blocks of like really you could apply it to anything.
Excellent. Well, so Ben Jundanian, I want to thank you again so much. It's great to see you again after a long time. Digitally, we used to ride bikes together, and now here we are in our own respective careers, thinking about the youth, making the world a more beautiful place. Do you have one last piece of advice as we wrap up here this Throwback Thursday episode of Office Hours? One last maybe assignment for the kids out there, the students of Keith Middle School, something that they could take from our talk and you know try out some sort of
I
piece of
got
inspiration for them.
I got a word, some word of inspiration, and I got a piece of homework for you. So we'll
Okay.
start with the homework because I don't want to leave you with that. So what I do is in my art is sort of, you guys ever heard of Zentangle, like where people draw patterns and they repeat them over and over and over and over and over again? That's sort of what my artwork is. It's just in sort of ordered Zentangle. So it's all just patterns, but I fill a page to the edge, and the whole page is like black and white and filled to the edge, and there's not a lot of white space and there's not a ton of black space. It's just sort of a balance with a bunch of lines and patterns. So if you guys want to get challenged, try and fill a whole sheet of paper with lines and drawings. I do it every couple days. I fill a whole sheet of paper with lines, and this is my practice book. I don't sell these drawings. I just draw them and I flip the page. We keep moving. But this is my practice book, and this is how I stay sharp, and this is how I, get better. Oh, here's one that's half done. But yeah, try and do that. And then my word of inspiration for you guys is just keep at it. Like nothing great is super easy. Like to be great at something, it shouldn't be easy. You should have to be working hard and be pushing yourself and trying to experiment. And if it's not hard, try to make it harder.
So keep at it, try harder. That sounded like from
Yeah.
my friend Ben Jundanian, the artist. He's live in Asheville, North Carolina. I'm Mr. Green. I'm live here in New Bedford, Massachusetts. This was another Throwback Thursday episode of Office Hours. Everyone, take care of one another. Stay safe. Peace.